Welcome back to Dalry Models. So in this video I'm going to be doing the frame assembly. So this is what I'm going to be doing, these steps here. So putting the frame together, I'm going to make a start on the rear suspension, although I haven't got the detail-ed parts, so we'll go as far as I can with those until I can get the extra parts come through. Fitting the engine into the frame, and then I'm going to do this section here for the rear fender. So that's what this video is for. So I'll get started with prepping the parts, and then I'll show you where I'm at. Okay, so these are the main parts for the frame assembly. So I've got the two halves of the frame, there's two supports there for it, and then a couple of pieces there that are going to go on, which I'll paint separately. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my Tamiya cement, and I'm just going to tack these parts on. So the first one that I'm going to do is that one there. Which goes in there like that. And then the one at the bottom. Using the thicker cement will give it a stronger bond. So for the frame area, it'll be quite strong, and then I don't have any worries about anything splitting or problems down the line. So now I'm ready to put the two parts together. So I'm just going to carefully go around it all. We're just going to attach. I have checked all of this in advance as well to make sure that everything fits as I want it to. And this one on here. Carefully put it together. Just making sure all of the alignment pins line up properly. I'm going to start with that bottom one down there, and then this one up here, and we can move on to the rest of the frame. Make sure it sits properly. Now once you're at that point, just go around and just double check everything's where it should be, that nothing's moved, everything's lined up properly. And then we can put that aside to dry for a bit, and then once the glue's dry on that, I can get it cleaned up. Okay, while that frame's glue's drying, I'm moving on to the suspension components. So as you can see, I've got all of the parts cut off, they're all prepped and cleaned up now. So first thing I'm going to do is get this piece here, which you're going to attach onto the end of there. So I'm just checking that it's going in the right place, and then I'm going to very carefully hold that in place, and then get some Tamiya extra thin cement, and then just carefully just dab it there, just to get that to bite. And then I get this piece, and that's a pulley bush there that goes inside of it, like that. Make sure that the pulley bush is seated properly, and that's going to sit on there. So again, I'm going to do the same, and just carefully tap the brush just to the side of that, just to get it to bite. And then the other thing I'm going to do is attach this. Although that's going to be a different colour, the actual mounting part of it is to be painted the same. So if I glue it on now and not ping it across the room, it means it'll be a bit easier to paint. I'll just mask it off when I'm ready to paint. So same applies again. Just carefully hold it and touch the brush to it. Make sure it's actually glued in. Sometimes you need to give a separate application to give it a bit more glue. That's a bigger part. So yeah, that will look better once it's masked off and painted, because like I said, the part that attaches down here, it wants to be the same colour. So put those to the side again, let the glue dry on that, and then I shall move over to the spray booth. Right, so here we are in the spray booth now. So I'm just going to turn the extractor fan on. So I've got all the parts laid out, as you can see, ready, and I've got the airbrush loaded up with the Zero Paints grey primer. So I'm just going to move all these little bits out of the way for now, and then we'll start painting it. So this is quite a tricky shape, so you've got to make sure that you get all of it covered. You can see there I've masked off where the under tray part goes to make sure that I've got a good surface for gluing to. So as always, first thing to do, check your flow from your airbrush, and then I'm just going to start misting the primer on. Just going to tighten that up a bit because it's moving on that stick. So if you ever have to need to do anything like that, make sure that you're touching an area that's not yet been painted. Otherwise you can end up making a mess with it, which obviously you don't want to do. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, move that over there for its first coat, and then I'm just going to go through on all the rest of the parts. So same principle, just misting it on to start with and building it up. So I'll go through all these other parts and then I'll show you where I'm at. Okay, so I'm just coming to do the spring now, and with that being a metal part, I've changed primer, so I'm now using the metal primer, because the other primer that I was using won't bite. So what I've done, if you can see, is I've attached the spring just to these old tweezers with a small magnet, just so it's got somewhere to hold, and it's got the smallest area where there's not going to get any paint touch to it. So I'm going to go the same procedure again, just spraying over it. So it's not going to take a lot to cover this spring. So once that's dried off, then I'll spray that with some white primer, and then I can get some colour on that. You also need to make sure, after using anything like an edge primer, that you clean your airbrush thoroughly afterwards, because the last thing you want is for that to be left in there and damage your airbrush or something. Okay, so I've done a bit of work off camera, as you can see. So the first thing I've done is painted the spring yellow, and for that I just used the Tamiya's enamel range of the lemon yellow, and I've then painted the parts for the other parts for the rear suspension and the foot brake for the rear brake, and for those I used Zero Paints aluminium. And then the last thing I've used is this one here, which I put away, the metallic grey, which I use for the master cylinder for the rear brake. So next thing that I'm going to do is paint these, which for that I'm using the semi-gloss black. So I'll just turn the extractor fan on. So I've got the airbrush all ready loaded up, so if I put that out of the way, then check my flow, and then just start misting it on. And just build up the layers on that. And I'm only about 15-20 psi on this. It's not very high pressure at all for this paint. Just going to keep going over it till I get an even coverage. So yeah, that's the first coat done on that piece. So just move over to the frame, and then it's the same again. I've painted the bar there with the aluminium as well, which I've now masked off, ready for painting black. I'm going to go through all of this lot, get it all painted up, and then see where we're at. So while I've been going through everything and working out how I'm assembling it and what I'm doing, and looking at the instructions, looking at reference photos and all the rest of it, I came to the conclusion that the wiring diagram for the rear brakes is wrong. So what it says is to have the hose there, as you can see I've scribbled on it a bit, going from the master cylinder, which then runs to the rear caliper. And if you look at a real bike, all these bikes have ABS, so that runs from the master cylinder up to the ABS connection, and then over to the rear caliper. So as you saw on there, I said I'm using braided line, so I've got these pieces cut out ready, which I don't think it was this exact one, but it's part of this set. It's just different grade. I've cut off a couple of short lengths of wire that will be the cables to go at the top, and I've made, if you can see that, this little bit here, which is just a bracket for those cables to go into. So the other thing I've done is I've cut the top off there, which the cable would originally go into, because I'm going to replace it with one of these. So as you can see there, you've got the banjo fitting with the bolt that goes through it, so that's going to go on top of there, and then that cable will go into it. So that's what I'm currently doing. So I'm not going to assemble all of this on camera, I'm going to go off and do that, and then I'll show you what I've done with that. But just to show you, I've drilled some holes there ready to go up into the inside of the frame, and then another one there for the mounting for that bracket. So that's the frame all painted up, ready for that. So that's going to be the next bit. Okay, so I've got all that wiring done now, as you can see there. So I've got the two hoses at the top going into the frame, the two braided lines running, one is going to go to the rear caliper there, and I've got the other one just to this banjo fitting, which you can see there, that's the RB Motion one, and you can see that it's got the pin at the top and then the actual banjo fitting itself underneath, so it just makes it look better than the kit part. So the one that I actually showed you was a slightly larger one. I think that was the one that I showed you was the 0.5, sorry, the 0.6, and the one that I've used is a 0.5. It just makes it look a little bit better in a smaller scale. So I'll just put that to one side for a second. So I'm going to move on to the rear suspension assembly. So what I've got is the pin that holds it all together, which I'm going to put through there. if I don't drop it. And then that's going to sit on that. So I'm just going to get a tiny little bit of glue. Don't want much of this at all. Just enough for it to grip. So as you can see, I'm using the cement, but I haven't got any paint on the area that I'm gluing to. So just put that on there. And then I've used, as I said, the kit spring. So I've got a little bit there where it's attached to the magnet, but once that's on there, you're not going to see that. So I'm not going to worry about that. So that's going to go in there, and I'm going to use super glue for that. So I've got a little bit over here. So I'll just put some on that end of that pin. Again, I'm not putting loads on because I don't think it needs it. And then carefully get that into there, like that. You need to make sure that the orientation's right on that part as to where you want to hold it. So I'll put that to the side for a minute, and I'm going to let that glue dry, because that's the next piece to do, is to actually put that into the frame. So I will come back shortly. Okay, so while that suspension assembly is drying, I'm going to move on to doing the rear light, which is this piece here. So for that, I'm going to use the canopy glue, this one here. It dries clear, doesn't leave any marks or anything like that. So it's not the strongest of glues, but for this sort of application it's absolutely fine. So I've already put some bare metal foil on the underside of that, just to give it a reflective back to it. So I'm just going around making a mess of this glue. The good thing about this one is, because it's water based, it's easy to clean off when you make a mess. So just checking that I'm going the right way with it. So that sits over there like that. So as you can see, some of the glue's dried, squeezed out, but just get a little bit of wet tissue, you can just wipe that off. So you can use cotton bud or anything for that, whatever your preference is. So that's that piece there, and as you can see, it's got that sort of reflectiveness to it, which you wouldn't get if you just went straight onto the black plastic. So I'll put that to one side, and once the suspension arm's dried, then I'll get that fitted. As I was test fitting everything before actually putting it all together, I found that when I attach this piece in here, that I'm not going to be able to get that piece in there now because of the wiring that I've put in, and it actually says to do that at a later stage. So I had to wait until I received my D-Select fork set, which was delayed. So I've got that now, so I can actually continue. So what I actually need out of that is just one little part. So let me sort that out, and then I will show you where I'm at with it. So for anyone that hasn't seen one of these before, this is what you get. So this is the instructions. So you can see there, you get the spring in there, the reservoir tank, a few bits for the top of the forks, and the forks themselves. And that's what's in the pack of this one. So I've got the bottom parts of the forks, some they go on the top with some wires in them, and then turn metal parts for the forks and the parts suspensions and things like that, and then the top. So I'll show you in more detail as I go through, but what I want at the moment is that piece there. So I'm going to take that out and get it attached, and there's a decal to attach to that as well. Okay, so I've got the decal there soaking while I'm working with this piece. So that's what you get, is this nicely turned anodized piece. So I've got some super glue ready and a cocktail stick. So I just need a tiny little bit of super glue. I'm just going to run a bead just around the bottom of this. Okay, I don't want too much on there. And then that is going to attach on there. So just hold that for a second. So hopefully once that's settled a bit, the decal will be ready. So that's that bit there. So let's see where the decal's at. Yep, there we go. Just like that over there. Like that. And then just get some tissue and just take the excess water off. Make sure that's positioned. And then get rid of that because I don't want that anymore. And then I will put the set solution on it afterwards. So I was checking the lineup of where the hole is to make sure it actually fits properly. So now that I've done that, you can see that screw goes through a lot better now, so then I can tighten it up a bit. And then I want that one goes in the bottom there, like that, and then I can fit the engine. So I will go and get my engine from a jig, which is over here. And I'll have a look how this fits. So I'm going to go off camera just to check the fit of this and how it all goes together, and then I will come back shortly. Okay, so it helped if I turned the engine the right way around. So I've got two lugs at the front there, one on either side there to line up, and then I've got at the bottom here, I've got these two here that line up in there, which are a little bit of a tighter fit. So trying not to break anything, I'm going to get that in there. So I might have to remove a bit of plastic or paint, probably. Quite a fine tolerance. So knock the camera on. So I'm going to remove some of the paint from that side and remove some of the paint from that side. And I'm going to do the same on there. I think I'm just going to check it again just to see what it fits like now. No, that was enough, just taking it off there. So that fits in nicely now. So then we've got a long screw goes in this side because you've got all that plastic to get through. So we've got an 8mm for that, which I've got over here. So what I'm going to do is just get these done loosely for now. Just to get them in place, and then I will come back and tighten them all up once they're all in place. outside. These are all now 4mm screws for the rest of them. Which was our first one that was the longer one. So hopefully these line up fairly straight. Don't expect any issues with these, but you never know. So put it in my little holder again. It just gives you a bit more grip and control over it. Sorry, going off camera. Concentrating too much what I'm doing and not looking at the camera, I'm afraid. So a couple more screws to tighten up. That's a long one, so it needs a little bit more work. So you'll notice as well, I've not put the wires on the top there yet, so I'll probably do those soon, before it all gets covered up. So the last piece I'm going to do in this video is the under panel, the under tray at the back. So that's all nicely carbon fibred and everything and ready to go on, and all polished up and everything. So there's no paint on any of this section, so I can go straight on with the glue, give it a decent amount so I get it to grip nicely. And I've checked the fit of this as well, so I know it fits well. So what I have to do is feed that back piece, that clear part through there, and then it sits down nicely on either side, like that. And then from the back you can see that clear light part. So that's it for this video. I'll work out getting it mounted on the jig again. It should be straightforward enough. At the moment I'm just going to go through where the rear axle will go in there. I just need to raise the bars up a bit, and then I can do one on the front like that. So that's how it will be in the next video, all mounted, and then I'll continue to work on it on the jig. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I'm enjoying building this kit. So far it's really nice. So I'll see you shortly.